WNBPA has got full power on calling a strike. Authorization from the WNBA players. WNBPA statement regarding strike authorization vote. They had a vote, all right? The players had a vote, and they said basically that the WNBPA can literally call a strike whenever they feel it's necessary.
That's not some random Twitter troll. That's commentary on Sue Bird and Katie Nolan's latest podcast, where they spent an entire segment trashing the millions of new fans who literally saved their league. And here's the kicker. Katie Nolan admits on camera she doesn't even watch the games. She's keeping tabs from a distance while lecturing the people who wake up at 2 in the morning in Germany to catch Indiana Fever games about why they're watching wrong. Welcome to the most backwards moment in WNBA history. The league just had its biggest year ever. Record viewership, sold-out arenas, corporate sponsors throwing money around like never before. And instead of building on that momentum, veteran voices are out here gatekeeping, attacking their own fan base. And oh yeah, they just gave themselves the power to shut down the entire 2025 season whenever they feel like it. I'm done being diplomatic about this. What's happening right now isn't just drama, it's sabotage. And I'm about to show you exactly who's killing the golden goose while pretending they're saving it. If you believe the story behind the story matters, if you think someone needs to call out this self-destructive nonsense, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track. And trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. Let me paint you the picture. December 2024. The WNBA just wrapped its most successful season in history. Caitlin Clark effect is real and undeniable. The numbers don't lie. Team USA training camp just finished with nothing but positive energy. Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, all on the same court looking incredible. The future has never looked brighter. And then Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe drop a podcast clip that goes nuclear. Not because it's insightful, not because it moves the conversation forward, but because they spent the entire segment being condescending to the very people who bought tickets, drove ratings, and gave the league mainstream attention for the first time in its history. Here's what really happened, and many of you have been asking about this for days. Sue Bird, Megan Rapinoe, and guest Katie Nolan sat down for their podcast. They talked about growing pains in the WNBA, totally valid topic. But then they made a choice. They clipped the most inflammatory part of that conversation and posted it on social media to promote their show. This wasn't taken out of context. This was the context they wanted. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Bringing up a toxic fan base, I thought it was so condescending to say that so many fans are just latching on to Caitlin Clark for reasons other than the basketball, and that is something that we just continue to see. And it was also crazy because Katie Nolan at the end of this whole bit, she was like, yeah, I don't really watch that many games, but I'm keeping tabs on it. And it's like, that's the reason you had the take that you did. The reason that you had the take that you did is because you're not watching the games, you're not watching what's going on, you're not going to the games. And you clearly said that. You said, I'm a casual fan, I don't really watch the games, but I keep tabs on what's going on. Single out, once again, like I said, in 2025, to target a group of fans felt like was very condescending. There was another point in the podcast where Sue Bird said that all of these new fans that came here, they immediately said that all of the players who came before Caitlin were trash, and that's just not true. I also feel so bad for Caitlin Clark because she's gotten to the level of popularity where people have just dehumanized her.
Katie Nolan, who admits she's a casual fan who doesn't watch full games, tells the audience that new WNBA fans are just latching on to Caitlin Clark for reasons that have nothing to do with basketball, that these fans are toxic, that they're immediately calling every player who came before Caitlin trash. Let that sink in. Someone who can't name half the starting lineups is lecturing people who drove attendance up 300% about their motives for watching. Someone who keeps tabs from a distance is telling passionate fans they're doing it wrong. The audacity is breathtaking. And Sue Bird backs her up, claiming that all these new fans immediately showed up saying everyone who came before Caitlin was trash. Connecting the dots reveals a very different story. You were onto something when you noticed this doesn't match reality at all. The narrative they're pushing simply isn't true. New fans didn't show up trashing Diana Taurasi. They didn't arrive saying Maya Moore was garbage. What actually happened is people discovered the WNBA through Caitlin Clark, and many of them went back and watched highlights of the legends. They learned the history. They appreciated the foundation that was built, but that's not the story these podcasters want to tell. Because if they admitted the truth, if they acknowledged that new fans are actually engaging with the whole league, then they'd have to confront something uncomfortable. They'd have to admit that their own lack of viewership and engagement before 2024 was part of the problem. Reading between the lines of this entire controversy, what's really happening becomes clear. These are people who claim to love women's basketball, who position themselves as authorities on the league, but they weren't watching either. Katie Nolan said it out loud. She doesn't watch many games. She keeps tabs. If you're a casual observer, that's fine. Be casual. But don't turn around and lecture the people who are actually invested. Don't condescend to fans who are spending their time and money supporting something you're only monitoring from a distance. And here's where this gets really dangerous. While all this podcast drama is playing out, while veterans are attacking their own fan base, the WNBA Players Association just made a massive move that nobody's talking about enough. They held a vote. 93% of players participated, and with 98% approval, they gave their executive committee full authorization to call a strike whenever they feel it's necessary. Only 2% pushed back on this decision. Let me filter out the noise for you. This means that right now, in this moment, when the WNBA finally has mainstream attention, when casual sports fans are actually tuning in, when corporate money is flowing, a small group of people has the power to shut it all down. No negotiations required, no further votes needed, just the executive committee deciding they've had enough. And boom, the season is over. I'd bet everything Caitlin Clark was in that 2% who voted no. Why? Because she's the only one publicly saying what everyone should be thinking. We have to play next year. We have to keep this momentum going. Both sides need to compromise. Both sides need to feel heard. That's how deals work. But apparently that's too reasonable for some people. Instead, we're handing nuclear strike authorization to a union that's been moving funny on social media for months. And I'm being generous calling it funny. The accounts have been divisive, petty, and now they have the ultimate weapon. Do you understand what that means? Right when the league finally breaks through, right when everything everyone worked for is paying off, the players just handed someone the power to blow it all up. And for what? Better contracts? Fair? Better travel conditions? Absolutely. Better marketing? Long overdue. But you know what kills all of that? No season, no games, no viewers, no revenue, no future. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody in WNBA media wants to say out loud. The people complaining loudest about new fans are the same people who weren't watching when it was just the core audience. Let me ask you something. Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to know. When you started watching the WNBA, did you immediately trash all the players who came before? Or did you discover the league through one player and then explore the rest? Because I'm betting it's the second one for most of you, and that completely destroys the narrative these podcasters are pushing. The same analysts screaming about Caitlin Clark taking up too much airtime don't cover anyone else when she's not in the headline. The same podcasters acting like gatekeepers of women's basketball can't even commit to watching full games. It's the most hypocritical thing I've ever seen. Elle Duncan said it out loud on ESPN. She claimed the Caitlin Clark fan base sucks the life and fun out of the WNBA. That before all these new people showed up, they had more topics to discuss, more variety in coverage, and my response is simple. So discuss them. Nobody's stopping you. If you want to talk about Aja Wilson's MVP season, talk about it. If you want to highlight Breanna Stewart's dominance, do it. If you want to give Sabrina Ionescu her flowers, the stage is yours. But here's the problem. and let's filter out the noise. Those segments don't get views. Those posts don't go viral. And these media personalities know it, so they do the only thing that works. They talk about Caitlin Clark, and when that works too well, they blame her fans for forcing their hand. It's the most backwards logic imaginable. You built your platform on her name. You got your clicks from her highlights, and now you're mad that it worked. Let me give you a specific example. An article came out recently about Aja Wilson. Beautiful piece, well-deserved recognition. And buried in that article was a random shot at Caitlin Clark from the same reporter who wrote a glowing piece about Caitlin the year before. Why was that line in there? What did it add? How did trashing one player enhance the story about another? It didn't. But it got engagement. It sparked debate. It drove clicks. And that's the game. Caitlin Clark has been dehumanized to the point where she's just content. Not a person. Not a 23-year-old dealing with stalkers, injuries, and pressure nobody her age should have to handle. Just a name you can throw into any article to boost your metrics, and she handles it with more grace than anyone in her position should have to. She shows up, she competes, she fights through everything, and the thanks she gets is another podcast segment questioning her fans. Motives. Here's where it gets even messier, and many of you have been asking about this. The Indiana Fever just released their 2025 calendar, and Caitlin Clark isn't on it. Not featured, not mentioned, just absent. Fans are losing their minds asking why the biggest star in franchise history isn't on the team calendar. Now, I'm going to be fair here. I don't think this was intentional disrespect. My guess is image rights issue. Her team probably didn't sign off. Maybe she didn't want to be involved. Maybe there's a marketing conflict, but the fact that people immediately assume it's shade tells you everything about where the discourse is right now. Fans are so used to seeing Caitlin Clark disrespected that even a calendar becomes a conspiracy. That's not healthy, that's not normal, and it's not sustainable. Because here's what happens next. The strike authorization sits there like a loaded gun. Negotiations drag on, tensions rise, and at some point, someone in that executive committee decides they've had enough. They call the strike. The season gets delayed or canceled, and all that momentum everyone worked so hard to build just evaporates. Casual fans who were just getting into women's basketball. Done. Corporate sponsors who were finally taking the league seriously. They'll pull their money so fast, your head will spin. Media coverage that was finally mainstream. Back to niche outlets and die-hard blogs. Everything resets to 2023 levels, maybe worse. And the saddest part? The players who will suffer most are the ones who wanted to play. The ones who saw this as their chance to break through. The rookies who are about to have their moment. The role players who finally had an audience. All of them become collateral damage because some veterans couldn't let go of their grievances long enough to capitalize on success. I want to be crystal clear about something. Player empowerment is important. Fair contracts matter. Better working conditions are non-negotiable. I'm not anti-union. I'm not anti-player. But I am anti-stupidity. And giving strike authorization right now, in this moment, with this momentum, is stupid. You know what else is stupid? Spending more energy trashing your own fans than building them up. Making podcast clips designed to go viral by dunking on the people who buy tickets, writing articles that throw shade at the player who sold out your arenas. It's all so backwards. And the worst part is everyone knows it. Even the people doing it know it's wrong, but they do it anyway because rage drives engagement. Controversy gets clicks, and tearing someone down is easier than building something up. Here's my challenge to WNBA media. To the analysts and podcasters and reporters who claim to love this game, prove it. Show me you can get views talking about basketball without mentioning Caitlin Clark every 5 seconds. Show me you can build up other players without tearing anyone down. Show me you actually watch the games you're so passionate about defending, because right now, I don't believe you. I think you're tourists in your own league. I think you're using women's basketball as a vehicle for your own hot takes and social commentary. And I think you're doing more harm than good. The pendulum is swinging. People are tired of bad faith debates. They're tired of being told they're watching wrong. They're tired of analysts who don't analyze and experts who don't watch. They want quality content about the actual game, breakdowns, strategy, player development, stories that matter. And if you can't provide that, someone else will. That's how media works. The audience finds what they want. And right now they're finding it outside the traditional WNBA media bubble. So here's where we are. Strike authorization locked in, podcast drama still echoing, Team USA training camp positivity already forgotten, and a whole lot of people talking about everything except basketball. The WNBA is at a crossroads. One path leads to sustained growth, mainstream acceptance, and generational wealth for players. The other path leads back to obscurity, and right now, the people with the most power are sprinting toward that second path while yelling at fans to stop following them. Caitlin Clark is 23 years old, and she sees it clearer than veterans twice her age. We have to play, we have to compromise, we have to keep moving forward. It's not complicated, it's not revolutionary, it's just common sense. But common sense doesn't drive engagement, and that's the real problem. We've built a media ecosystem that rewards controversy over clarity, that celebrates division over unity, that punishes anyone who tries to take the high road. And until that changes, we're going to keep having the same conversation, the same tired debates about who deserves credit and who's a real fan and whether new attention is good or bad. Meanwhile, the game itself gets lost in the noise. If you want to see me break down what happens when these negotiations actually start, when the real leverage gets tested, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this story is about to get a lot more intense, and you don't want to miss what comes next. The clock is ticking. The WNBA has everything it's ever wanted sitting right in front of it: growth, attention, money, opportunity. And they're about to fumble it because some people can't get out of their own way. If this strike happens, if this season gets canceled, if all this momentum dies, you can't blame Caitlin Clark. You can't blame new fans. You can only blame the people who chose drama over progress. And history won't be kind to that choice. Figure it out, WNBA, before it's too late.